All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Oh, it definitely is. This week, we are tackling NFL Week 9.
Lots to unpack.
Absolutely. We've got a fantastic breakdown from CBS Sports to guide us through all the craziness.
Some wild games.
No kidding, right? So whether you missed the games or just need a quick recap, we've got you covered. Get ready for some serious upsets and some major shakeups in that playoff picture.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out from here on out.
For sure. Okay, so let's jump right in and talk about the biggest head-scratcher from Week 9.
Head scratcher.
Yeah. You know, the Dallas Cowboys?
Oh, Cowboys.
America's team on a 3-game losing streak. What in the world is happening in Dallas?
Well, for starters, their defense is a shadow of its former self.
Yeah, it's rough. They gave up how many points in those 3 games?
A staggering 104 points.
104. That's their worst stretch since 2010.
Yep, and Dak Prescott going down with that hamstring injury certainly doesn't help.
No, not at all. And CBS Sports, they didn't hold back, giving the Cowboys a D's grade for their Week 9 performance.
Ouch, that's got to sting.
Yeah, not a good look. It's like they've completely lost their identity out there.
And speaking of identity, the Atlanta Falcons, they seem to have found theirs.
They dismantled the Cowboys this week.
Earned themselves a solid B grade from CBS Sports.
And Bijan Robinson, their rookie running back, he's proving he was worth that top pick.
He's electric.
Tell me about it. 145 total yards against the Cowboys. He's a key piece of that offensive puzzle they're putting together.
Oh, yeah. And let's not forget about Kirk Cousins. He had the Falcons in control early, 3 touchdown passes in the first 3 quarters.
So what do you think? Are the Falcons exceeding expectations, or are they the real deal?
I think they're a little bit of both.
Okay, I can see that.
They're definitely playing above expectations, but they've got a tough schedule ahead.
True.
But you know what? They've proven they can compete with some of the best.
That's for sure.
And that makes them a team to watch in the NFC, especially with Robinson adding that extra dimension to their offense.
All right, so from a surprising team to one that we almost expect to win, even when it's not pretty, the Buffalo Bills.
Ah, yes, the Bills. Another close victory for them this week.
They squeaked by the Miami Dolphins, but it went down to the wire, as usual.
Well, you got to give credit where credit is due. Josh Allen, he's just clutch.
No doubt. He led a second-half comeback, over 150 passing yards and 3 touchdowns.
And let's not forget about Tyler Bass. Talk about redemption. Nailed that game-winning 61-yard field goal after missing an extra point earlier.
61 yards. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that kick.
It was a beauty. So I'm curious, do you think this win cements the Bills as the favorites in the AFC East?
I mean, they're in the driver's seat for sure, especially with Allen's record against the Dolphins.
12 wins out of his last 13 against Miami.
That's insane. All right, from one dominant team to another, let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals.
They put on a clinic against the Raiders.
After that shaky start to the season, they've definitely found their groove.
And Joe Burrow, he was on fire.
5 touchdowns for Burrow, and Trey Hendrickson, monster game with 4 sacks.
This was a statement win for the Bengals, showing everyone they're back and they're a serious contender.
Absolutely. A huge test awaits them next week against the Ravens. That's going to be a battle for AFC North supremacy.
Should be a good one.
Okay, before we move on to that, let's rewind to another game that had everyone talking. The Chargers taking down the Browns.
Yeah, Justin Herbert got sacked 6 times but still pulled out the win.
That's insane. 6 sacks. That's got to be some kind of record.
Well, it shows his resilience under pressure.
Right. He connected with Quentin Johnston for a 66-yard touchdown that really shifted the momentum.
And the Chargers defense, they really stepped up in the second half. Shut down the Browns completely.
Yeah, 3 interceptions from Deshaun Watson.
And Tuli Tuipulotu leading the charge with 2.5 sacks.
So where do you see the Chargers right now? Do you think this win puts them in wild card contention?
I think they're definitely in the mix. The AFC is pretty wide open this year.
You're not wrong.
They have the talent to make a run, but they need more consistency, especially on offense. Herbert can't be running for his life every game.
No, that's not sustainable. All right, let's move on to a game that went down to the wire. The Tennessee Titans edging out the Patriots in overtime.
That was a nail-biter.
Tony Pollard, he was a workhorse.
128 rushing yards, including a crucial 36-yard run in overtime.
Set up the game-winning field goal.
Exactly. But you know what I found interesting? Mason Rudolph's performance.
Yeah, he managed the game well. Didn't try to do too much.
240 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and he avoided any major mistakes.
It does seem like they might have found something with Rudolph under center.
We'll have to wait and see. The defense also deserves some credit, by the way, sacking the rookie QB Drake May 4 times and picking him off twice.
Including that game winner in overtime.
Yep, they stepped up when it mattered most.
Okay, how about those Washington Commanders? They just keep rolling.
Took down the Giants to improve to a surprising 7-2 record.
They are quietly becoming one of the most exciting teams in the league.
Their offense is clicking on all cylinders. Scored on 5 of their 6 possessions after their opening punt.
I mean, they're spreading the ball around effectively.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels is making big plays.
They're one of the biggest surprises of the season, that's for sure.
What do you think is the key to their success?
It's a combination of things. They're playing with confidence, executing their game plan. Daniels is making smart decisions.
And their defense is making those key stops when they need them most.
Exactly. It's a complete team effort.
All right, get ready for this one because this one came out of nowhere. The Carolina Panthers, after struggling all season, pulled off a thrilling upset against the Saints.
Snapped their losing streak in dramatic fashion.
Chuba Hubbard was the hero, scoring 2 touchdowns, including the game winner with just over 2 minutes left.
The Panthers' defense, even though they gave up a lot of yards, they held strong when it mattered most.
This upset has some major implications for the NFC South. What do you think it means for both teams moving forward?
Well, for the Panthers, it's a much-needed boost of confidence. They're no longer at the bottom of the division.
Right.
For the Saints, it's a setback. They need to regroup quickly if they want to stay in that playoff hunt.
And last but not least, the Baltimore Ravens. They absolutely demolished the Denver Broncos.
It was a statement win, showcasing their Super Bowl aspirations.
Lamar Jackson put on a clinic, completing over 84% of his passes for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns.
He's making a strong case for MVP this season.
And Derrick Henry, well, he did Derrick Henry things.
107 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns.
The Ravens look like a complete team.
Dynamic offense, a stingy defense, and a proven coach.
Do you think they have what it takes to go all the way?
They're definitely one of the most complete teams in the league, but it's a long season.
You're right about that. Plenty of other contenders out there.
We'll see how it all unfolds.
Before we dive into the Jets' Thursday night win, I'm curious, what was the most surprising result of Week 9 for you? What really jumped out?
You know, the Cowboys' continued struggles are definitely alarming.
Yeah, it's hard to see America's team like that.
But honestly, the Panthers upset over the Saints, that was a shocker. It just goes to show that any given Sunday.
Anything can happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can never underestimate any team in this league.
Okay, let's rewind to Thursday night and talk about the New York Jets. They pulled off a victory over the Houston Texans.
It was a tale of 2 halves for the Jets. Struggled mightily in the first half.
Only 69 yards of offense in the first 2 quarters.
But in the second half, Aaron Rodgers came alive.
He did, connecting with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams for some big plays.
And Garrett Wilson, those catches were something else.
2 one-handed touchdown receptions, including one that's already been called the catch of the year.
That was highlight reel material.
For sure, Wilson's performance was electric, but we can't overlook the Jets' defense. They sacked C.J. Stroud 8 times.
That's a rough night for any quarterback.
They harassed him all game long.
So after that win, do you think the Jets are back in the playoff conversation?
I think they're still in the mix. They have a favorable schedule down the stretch, and with Rodgers starting to find his rhythm and their defense playing at a high level, they could make a run.
They could.
But they need to build on this performance and find some more consistency, especially on offense.
Yeah, that's been their Achilles heel all season.
Exactly. Let's talk about the Texans for a moment. They're facing some serious challenges, especially when it comes to protecting their young quarterback.
8 sacks on C.J. Stroud, that's a major red flag.
It's the 5th time this season he's been sacked at least 3 times.
That's not sustainable. CBS Sports even pointed out their offensive line is a major weakness.
And it's showing in Stroud's performance. He only completed 36.7% of his passes for 191 yards against the Jets.
Those are not good numbers.
No, not at all. But there is a glimmer of hope. Wide receiver Nico Collins is eligible to come off injured reserve soon. Okay, so that could give them a much-needed boost.
It could, but until they address those offensive line issues, it's going to be an uphill battle for them.
Okay, so we've seen some dominant performances, shocking upsets, and teams fighting for every win. What does all of this tell us about the state of the NFL right now?
It tells me that this season is wide open.
You're right.
The playoff picture is starting to take shape, but there's a lot of football left to be played.
Every game matters.
Every single one.
Before we wrap up, I want your expert prediction. Give me one bold prediction for the rest of the season.
Bold prediction, huh? All right. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the Commanders win the NFC East.
Oh, okay, that's a bold one.
They've got a solid team, a favorable schedule, and they're playing with so much confidence right now.
They are. I wouldn't put it past them. They've been exceeding expectations all season.
Exactly. They're hungry for success.
Well, there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour of all the action from NFL Week 9. It was a week filled with surprises, statement wins, and some serious questions about certain teams' ability to contend.
And remember, this is just a taste of what the source material covers. There's even more in-depth analysis and insight in the full CBS Sports article.
If you're a diehard fan, definitely check it out. All right, before we sign off, we want to hear from you. What surprised you the most this week?
Was it a team that exceeded your expectations? A game that went down to the wire? Or maybe a team that disappointed despite high hopes?
Join the conversation on social media using #TheDeepDiveInNFL.
We love hearing your thoughts and getting your perspectives on the games.
That wraps up another exciting episode of The Deep Dive.
We'll be back next week to explore another fascinating topic.
Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those brains engaged.
See you next time. It really is, Every week, a new team seems to step up and surprise us.
I know, right? It's what keeps things so interesting.
Keeps on our toes.
Exactly. And speaking of surprises, the Washington Commanders, they're quietly putting together a remarkable season.
They are. Their win over the Giants this week, it really solidified their status as a contender in the NFC.
Yeah, 7-2, that's not a fluke.
No, not at all.
Oh.
What's impressive about the Commanders is their consistency. They're not flashy, but they're efficient.
Yeah, they just get the job done.
They control the clock with their running game. Their defense makes key stops when it matters most.
Well-coached team, playing with a lot of confidence.
Speaking of confidence, let's talk about Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, yeah, that dismantling of the Broncos, that was a statement win.
It was. They sent a message to the rest of the league.
Jackson is playing at an MVP level right now.
It really is. Smart decisions, extending plays with his legs, throwing the ball with pinpoint accuracy.
And then you combine that with the power running of Derrick Henry.
It's a nightmare for opposing defenses.
No doubt about it. The Ravens are looking like a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
They are, but, the NFL is a marathon, not a sprint.
That's true.
A lot of games left to be played. Anything can happen.
Right. You never know. Speaking of unexpected turns, the biggest upset of Week 9, the Carolina Panthers over the New Orleans Saints.
Nobody saw that coming.
It was a gutsy performance by the Panthers.
They played with urgency, determination.
Chuba Hubbard, he stepped up big-time game-winning touchdown in the final minutes.
And their defense, even though they gave up a lot of yards, they held strong when it mattered most.
It's a huge boost of confidence for Carolina shows them not giving up on the season.
And for the Saints, well, it's a tough loss. Hurts their chances in the NFC South race.
Yeah, that division is still wide open. Speaking of tight races, let's circle back to the Tennessee Titans' overtime win against the Patriots. Not pretty, but they got it done.
Tony Pollard, he was the workhorse that game.
Over 100 rushing yards.
Set up the game-winning field goal. But I gotta say, what intrigued me was Mason Rudolph's performance.
Yeah, he didn't try to do too much, just managed the game well.
Exactly. Made some key throws when they needed him.
It seems like they might have found something with him at quarterback.
Their defense, as always, tough and opportunistic.
That's their identity, right? Defense and running the football.
It's a formula that can be very effective, especially in the AFC South.
They're back at .500, still in the playoff hunt. Now let's talk about a team that's been exceeding expectations all season long, the Atlanta Falcons.
They dismantled the Cowboys. It was a statement win.
Bijan Robinson is the real deal.
Oh, yeah, he's living up to the hype, that's for sure.
Adding a whole new dimension to their offense.
And Kirk Cousins, he's playing with a lot of confidence.
Making smart decisions, spreading the ball around.
The Falcons are a team to watch in the NFC. They're exceeding expectations. Could be a dark horse contender.
All right, let's shift gears now and talk about a team that's been struggling. The Dallas Cowboys' 3-game losing streak, raising some serious questions.
Their defense is a major concern, giving up points at an alarming rate.
Not generating much pressure on opposing quarterbacks.
And Dak Prescott's injury, it's obviously a big blow, but even when he was healthy, they weren't playing well.
It's like something's off in Dallas. Not the same energy, not the same confidence.
The pressure is mounting on Mike McCarthy to turn things around.
Yeah, it's a critical juncture for them. They need to figure things out quickly.
The NFC East is still up for grabs, but they got to start winning games.
Let's talk about a team that's been a pleasant surprise, the Los Angeles Chargers. That win over the Browns. Impressive, even though Justin Herbert got sacked 6 times.
Herbert is a special talent. He's tough, he's accurate, and he never lost his composure, even under all that pressure.
Connected with Quentin Johnston for that game-changing 66-yard touchdown.
And the Chargers defense, they shut down the Browns offense completely in the second half.
They're starting to find their identity.
Dynamic offense, young defense, and a coach who's getting the most out of his players.
Okay, let's dive into a game that had everyone on the edge of their seats, Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins.
Back and forth battle, went down to the wire.
Josh Allen, clutch as always.
Led the second half comeback, the game-tying score in the final minutes.
And then Tyler Bass with that 61-yard field goal as time expired.
What a kick.
Incredible performance by Allen. Gutsy call by the coaching staff to put their trust in Bass after that missed extra point.
The Bills, they're in control of the AFC East right now, looking like a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
But the road ahead, it's not going to be easy.
No, the AFC East is always tough, and the Dolphins are a team that can beat anyone.
All right, last but not least, the New York Jets. They got the win on Thursday night against the Houston Texans.
Tale of two halves for the Jets. They struggled offensively in the first half,
But Aaron Rodgers started to look like himself in the second.
connecting with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams.
Garrett Wilson, those catches were unbelievable.
2 one-handed touchdown receptions. One of them is already being called the catch of the year.
He's a special talent, quickly becoming one of Rodgers' favorite targets.
The Jets are still a work in progress, but they're showing signs of life.
Favorable schedule down the stretch. If they can find some consistency on offense, they could make a run at a playoff spot.
They could, but let's talk about the Texans for a second.
Mm.
They're facing some serious challenges.
8 sacks on C.J. Stroud, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. It's the 5th time this season he's been sacked at least 3 times. That's unsustainable.
Their offensive line needs to step up. They need to protect their young quarterback.
It's showing in Stroud's performance, too. He only completed 36.7% of his passes against the Jets.
So as we wrap up our look at NFL Week 9, what are the final thoughts? What stood out to you the most?
It's hard to choose just one thing. This week was full of surprises, upsets, dominant performances. The playoff picture is starting to take shape, but there's still a lot of football left to be played.
And that's what makes the NFL so exciting, right? Every week brings something new.
Absolutely. We're just getting started. Can't wait to see what unfolds in the weeks to come.
You know, it's crazy how 1 week in the NFL can just completely change everything.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Teams that we thought were contenders are struggling.
And some teams are coming out of nowhere.
It's true. It really shows the parity in this league. On any given Sunday, anyone can win.
Absolutely, and that's what makes it so exciting. Speaking of exciting, let's talk about the Bengals. Offense was clicking on all cylinders against the Raiders.
Joe Burrow was on another level, completing his first 15 passes.
I know, right? 5 touchdowns. It was like he was playing Madden on rookie mode.
Seriously. And the scary part is, they're only going to get better.
Yeah, once Jamar Chase is back from injury.
That offense is going to be scary good.
They have all the pieces for a deep playoff run.
Franchise quarterback, a dynamic group of receivers, a solid defense.
Nobody's going to want to face them in the playoffs.
No, not at all.
But, okay, before we crown them, let's talk about another team that's been quietly having a great season. The Washington Commanders.
They're a team that's greater than the sum of their parts.
Yeah, they don't have any superstars, but they just find ways to win.
They play with so much grit and determination.
Opportunistic defense, consistent running game, and Jaden Daniels is making smart decisions.
They're not going to wow you with their style, but they're tough to beat. You got to earn every yard against them.
And that 7-2 record, it speaks for itself. They're definitely a team to keep an eye on in the NFC.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the Chargers. All the talent in the world, but can they put it all together?
That win against the Browns was impressive, but seeing Justin Herbert get sacked 6 times,
Yeah, that was rough.
their offensive line has got to protect him better. He's too valuable to be taking that kind of punishment every week.
If they can fix that, though, watch out.
Oh, absolutely. They have the potential to be a very dangerous team.
They can beat anyone, but they can also beat themselves.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with them in the second half of the season.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground today, talking about all the crazy action from Week 9.
It was a wild one, that's for sure. So many surprises, big wins, and it was a good reminder of why we love the NFL.
Any given Sunday, anything can happen.
And we can't wait to see what happens next.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the NFL.
If you want even more analysis, be sure to check out the full CBS Sports article.
It's a great resource for any football fan. All right, before we go, we want to hear from you. What were your biggest takeaways from Week 9? Which teams impressed you? Which teams disappointed you?
Let us know your thoughts on social media using hashtag #TheDeepDiveNFL.
We love hearing from you guys and getting your take on all the action. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those brains engaged.
See you on the next Deep Dive.